Hi, this is Andy at Charleston Eastgate. In this video I'm going to replace the motor in my 1980s Intercity 125. So I've bought this 12 volt DC kit from Strathpeffer Junction, David up in Scotland, and I'm going to be replacing this tired and worn ringfield motor from my beloved Intercity 125. So I'm just going to unpack all the pieces and get the motor taken apart for fitting. Now at this point I would advise you to take a photograph of the motor bogie and the wires and where they connect to, because you're going to need to connect this all back together later on at the end. So disconnect all the cables to the motor bogie, and then you can start taking apart the ringfield motor. First of all, remove the motor bogie itself from the chassis, and then you can start taking apart the motor itself. So I've got a small yogurt pot available, and in which I'm going to collect all the parts of the motor. Lift the two brush covers on the side of the motor. Careful here because the springs are bound to fly out, and the carbon brushes, and then I'm going to remove all of the cogwheels on the other side of the motor and put them to one side. I'm going to keep all these parts just in case I want to replace the motor in the future. Unlikely, but I'm going to keep the parts anyway for spares. So to continue with the motor replacement on this model, you have to remove the wheels and the axles to be able to remove the front of the commutator cover. This can be done with a small flat screwdriver. Careful not to bend them, but if you carefully prise off the wheels from the chassis, and then with a small screwdriver you can get a screwdriver in the top and clip off the commutator cover. So from here you've got the commutator, and on the other side you have the cogwheel, which has to be removed from the drive shaft to be able to remove the motor. And yes, you've guessed it, this one is definitely stuck on. This one's not going to come off. So I eventually found the cogwheel at the other side of the room. It did come off eventually. So I've removed the commutator, and surprisingly enough the magnet came straight out. So we now have an empty motor body, and I'm going to take this opportunity to give it a good clean out with some isopropyl alcohol. The next step is to move the brass bushing from the middle of the motor body, and it just pushed straight out. So the next step is to fit the sticker on the inside of the motor body, this insulation, as per instructions. And the next step is to fit the motor housing into the body, which clips in nice and snug. So the new motor housing is in place. We can get started with fitting the new CD motor. Start by threading the cables through the holes in the top of the moulding as per instructions and press in the motor just a slight bit and then lock it into place with the motor cover. From here it's the clips on the pins at the side which went on surprisingly very easily, and a little press with a screwdriver locks them into place to make sure the motor is secure. So next is the cog, and I can already see that it's too wide for the shaft, so as per instructions I'm going to cut it down to 4mm. and do this with a very sharp craft knife. So with the cog fitted, I'm now going to refit the axles, the wheels, and these all are nice clean, and they're going back on to the motor body. Test everything is spinning as it's supposed to do, turn the wheels, make sure nothing's jamming. In this case everything's fine. Tiny bit of lubricant on the cogs, on the pins, and then we can reassemble everything for testing. So I'm going to connect a power supply and check out if the motor's running. Yeah, that looks and sounds good. The direction. Perfect. So it's time to get everything soldered and put back together. Got some good flux and some good solder. The soldering iron's hot and clean, and it's time to solder all the wires back together. So at this point I put the body back on the chassis and took it upstairs for a test run on the layout. Unfortunately the body was catching on the rear motor bogie, which turned out to be the rear windows, which had one of the right hand side had come away from the frame. This was rectified with a blob of super glue. So that's the end of the video. I can highly recommend these replacement upgrade motor kits for the ringfield motor. This Hornby 30-year-old Hornby 125 has definitely got a new lease of life. Thanks to David at Strathpeffer Junction for getting these to me quickly. I will put a link at the end of the video if anybody out there wants to buy one of these. Really good, really good. Thank you for watching. Any comments, please comment below, and like and subscribe if you've liked this video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.